Hello, everyone out there. My name's Tom Moore, and with me is Ollie Connolly. Ollie, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad, buddy, but I hear you've got something to tell not only me, but of course all our listeners out there. What do you got to tell them, Ollie?
We have a huge announcement. On the 26th of January, Tuesday the 26th, UKEndzone.com will no longer exist. That site will be removed. And we are moving, and I'm launching a brand new pro football website called thereadoptional.com.
Now, is it just me, Ollie, or is that a fantastic pun?
It's a fantastic pun. It's a very widely read, respected column, Tom. And it's being launched into its own site with good investment and kind of the same principles that I like to try and do at UK Endzone. It's a tiny, small platform we've had here at UK Endzone, but I want to try and take it and make it bigger and better on a new site.
So we're thinking bigger, better, larger, unleashed, like one of those franchise movies, like the second one. So like UK Endzone 2, improve the readoptional.com.
No doubt about it. We got a bunch of podcasts. We're going to do all the YouTube stuff. Some incredible writing talent looks like it's coming aboard. Some big names. That's all cool and exciting. And but still doing the stuff we already did. Like, I'm going to keep doing the column. We're going to keep doing the podcast. So some of the favorites from UK Endzone are going to be coming across. So Andrew Symes will be coming across. Connor Allison. People that the listeners enjoy will be coming across as well.
Okay, that's great stuff. So I definitely think what we're saying is listeners out there, and of course the guys that used to go on UKEndzone.com, please come along. Be a part of it. You want to be a part of this new thing. It's not just a pun, the readoptional.com. This is going to be huge, and we hope you can join us from the start. Isn't that right, Ollie?
That's right. And for those who download any of our podcasts, they remain the exact same. You do nothing. You touch nothing. You wake up on the Tuesday. Everything's changed. It's going to be amazing. The feeds will update. All that's automatic. The Twitter followers at UK Endzone, that's all going to update automatically. So really, for the reason listeners, everything gets better. They don't have to do anything. And they just kind of sit the way they did. And if they do go to the website, they type in a different address.
Sounds like my love life throughout my university years. You know, I touch nothing, I do nothing.
It all works out for you, though.
Exactly. There you go. Please stay with us then. And we will join you, as we are now, Ollie and myself, and the whole gang, on the readoptional.com. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Moore and Connolly Football Show. So glad you could join us. We are coming out of Divisional Week and we're going into the Conference Championship Week. Oh yes, it's getting exciting. It's the early show. My name is Tom Moore, your humble host, and joining me, as always, my good friend Ollie Connolly. Ollie, how are you doing?
Having one of the best days of my life.
Well, that's good, but what I'm concerned is that every time I introduce you, I point at you and I'm just pointing at a wall.
And I always point back, which is kind of remarkable.
Love it. Why are you having such a good day?
Launched a new website. That's always fun. Patriots are in the championship game. That's also fun. Just having a good time.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. So I'm having, maybe not so good of a day. Love the launch of the website, but apart from that, maybe a little bit sad. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go straight into it today. We're going to get into those 4 games from the weekend. We're going to talk through each of them, the key discussion topics, and go through what we thought were the most important things and the factors and how we think things are going to go moving forward. Of course, we'll be previewing the Conference Championship games when we get to the end of the week and our late show. And after the games on this week's show, we'll get to the news then. We know everyone wants to hear about the games, Ollie.
They want to hear about the games before they want to hear about some of these promotions from within, which are going around the NFL.
Yeah, weird coaching changes, and I'm not sure about some of them. Some weird faces as well in there, but we'll get to that later. Ollie, let's do it. Play a tune. The divisional weekend is over. Please get in touch with us on Twitter. You can find me at ThomasMoore27. You can find Ollie at Ollie Connolly. He's the man himself. Please get in touch with us. Hit us up with the hashtag MCFS. We want to hear your questions, thoughts, whatever it is, particularly if you're listening to this now before we do our preview show for the Conference Championship games later in this week. Hit us up with your questions. But Ollie, let's go through it in chronological order, and starting with why you're so happy you're going to another Conference Championship game. The Patriots see off the Chiefs. Now, this is interesting, Ollie, because I think we thought this was going to be closer than perhaps it was. And maybe the score doesn't really lend itself to describing what the game actually was like in the end.
I think that's a fair point. The Patriots coming down the stretch were in complete control, and the Chiefs took that drive where I think the Patriots couldn't believe their luck. That they were actually, the Chiefs themselves they took, I think, over 5 minutes to score on that final drive, and that in and of itself ended the game. Came down to the onside kick, of course, as these things do. but they themselves kind of end this game with the horrendous clock management, which I don't want to lay all the blame as Andy Reid, as everyone likes to do. That to me is a quarterback thing. If you're one of the best, you're looking at Peyton, you're looking at Brady, looking at Rodgers, that's when you just get into the know-huddle yourself and start calling your own plays. So I don't want to lay all of that at the door of Andy Reid, though I don't know how much goes on between Smith and Reid. But I thought, like you said, the score probably didn't reflect, though credit to the Chiefs for keeping this close, because going on a bye week to Foxborough, you lose maybe your best overall player. Justin Houston barely played in this game, and that was your matchup. Our edge rushers against your poor tackles, that was their matchup. They lost that. So to keep it that close on the road, bye week for the Pats, it was impressive from the Chiefs.
You know, it's interesting. We've been talking so much this season. One thing that came up and we discussed, I know Damashek discussed it, was this whole triplets thing, Ollie. And often it was really quarterback, running back, receiver. But if you just look at any three players on an offense, can you get much better than Brady, Gronkowski, and Edelman in terms of matches for a defense and mismatches and how difficult they are to defend? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Ollie, they got to be the hottest trio on any offense in the league, and I include Pittsburgh in that.
Yeah, every time they played in the regular season, they scored more than 30 points. They scored 27 points this week. So when those guys are all healthy and they're all on fire, and Edelman was still beat up, he dropped early passes, Gronkowski isn't fully healthy, Brady had the high ankle sprain coming into the week. But when they're playing, they score more than 27 points. So now, as the other team, you're going into every week knowing we have to get to 30. And a team like the Chiefs, we mentioned this in the preview, that's just not their MO. So now you got to go and try and find that team. Is it Arizona or is it Carolina? Because these guys will score points. And what's also remarkable about those guys, from kind of a bigger picture NFL standpoint, all of those guys were available to everyone. Gronkowski didn't go with the first overall pick. Edelman was undrafted. He was a quarterback. And Tom Brady went in the 6th round. All these guys, how these teams build teams, it's so tough to do. It's an impossible job to build an NFL team.
I saw a fantastic quote that Belichick, when they drafted Edelman, they said to him, "We don't know what you're going to play, but all we know is that you can play." Mm-hmm. And that's just a fantastic quote. We don't know what we're going to do with you, but we know you're a football player. You find football players where you find football players. And that's a classic kind of really good personnel move. And that personifies why the Patriots are so good. What's interesting, though, Ollie, how about that Patriots running game? Is this going to cause them a cropper moving forward? Because Steven Jackson looked like my nan in her wheelchair and not in the one that's motorized.
I think that genuinely they only brought Steven Jackson to really pass it. They knew that LeGarrette Blount wasn't running the ball very well. They lost that running threat. They know they have to throw the ball on almost every down. I think they tried to get the guy who they thought was the best available pass blocker at that position. Jackson knows McDaniel's system. Brady commands everything at the line of scrimmage, and they get the ball out so quickly that they use that running game, and it's a cliche, but they do use it as an extension. They use the passing game as the extension of the run game. They use the quick screens. They get the ball out to Edelman in the flat. They throw so much stuff underneath, and some of that is to set up the deep shot that will come. But a lot of it is, so much is run after the catch, that is in essence a pitch out. When you're just throwing the ball to a screen or underneath the Edelman or Amendola, that becomes your running back in space, these 5'10", 5'11" guys, rather than coming out of the backfield, and it's just kind of an intelligent way to do it.
I want to take another kind of reflective step back here as well, because with some of the other games, I think in all the games, really, the better team won, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that's a case for all 4 games. I think the 3 that follow this game, I think we've got more debating points in terms of the game, the outcome, how it could have gone, because I feel with this one, it kind of went how it should have gone when you actually saw the teams out there on the field together. You know, we saw the Patriots were a better team, at least had the better individuals that made the difference. But let's just take a step back and just reflect on the Chiefs season, because they didn't start off great. They had a slow start, then they put that massive run together, and they've got a quarterback now in Alex Smith that he seems very capable. They can potentially add more pieces. I mean, imagine if they'd not lost Jamal Charles. This is a positive season for the Chiefs, Ollie.
It is, but I'm never a fan of the taking the step approach, like we're heading in the right direction. These things all seem to be like, it's a 1-year thing for most of these teams. To get the sustained success, it's so tough to do. You have the Seahawks in the NFC, that's the sustained team. The Packers are there as well, obviously. And you have the Patriots in the AFC, and then Denver's come along these past 4 years. You kind of have your bedrock teams because they got franchise quarterbacks, and every couple of teams will get a shot. The Giants get their shot, they break through. The Chiefs got their shot this year, could they break through? It's really tough to sustain it, so I'm not a fan of we're trending the right direction, 1 or 2 moves. Doesn't seem to pan out that way if you don't have a guy who can elevate you to 11 or 12 wins, and I like Alex Smith a lot, but he isn't that guy, and they just lost their OC, so there's change coming there, and they don't have a great deal for a team that hasn't been in and around the playoffs every year, a great deal of cap space or maneuverability because they've had high draft picks and some of the guys that are coming available this year and some of the guys they signed last year.
Interesting one to watch them, the Chiefs in the off season. Let's just touch on the man himself. I know you love him. And I tell you what, I've this season come round even more to him and his greatness, and I do recognise him as the best quarterback of all time, in my opinion. Now, I never watched Montana, and I know you always say that as well. You never watched Montana, really, like you've watched Brady. But I do believe, he set himself up there in terms of statistics, records, leadership, everything you see, the eye test. He is the greatest. And, Ollie, 10 AFC title games in 14 years as a starter.
Yeah, it's more than 27 franchises in this league, which is just astounding. Him individually. And he said today, I thought it was a funny quote when he said he never dreamt of getting to 10. Like, who would? No one's done this. 27 franchises, 5 franchises, whatever, 6 have done this? Of course you never dreamt of doing it. It's really remarkable. And just to have that sustained success in a league that is built, unlike the other sports where the Yankees can go and pay more than anyone, even if it doesn't seem to work out in those sports, this sport is designed where if you are bad, we give you a reward. You have more cap space, you have more draft capital, you have all these things in place, we tinker with the schedule, and yet no one can get past them. Winning, not just winning their division, but when you get to money time in the playoffs, that's when they're at their best.
It is fascinating that it continues to, even if you do better like the Browns, for example, or other teams, it continues just to go from bad to worse. And then with the good teams, they just seem to, carry it on. So it shows you really that, the NFL and the league can try and bring parity in as much as it likes. But at the end of the day, probably better management, player personnel management, team management, general management, that will always come out in the end.
And this is the thing that drives me insane around draft season. And maybe this is because I work on it all year round, and that's why it bugs me. But the whole thing becomes, this team didn't draft well, they didn't get X player, X spot, and it doesn't make any sense. Look at all these teams who've been bad for so long. They've all had top 5 picks. Jacksonville has drafted now, I believe, 4 of the past 5 years in the top 5. And yet they still haven't been able to win that division in the AFC South. It has very little to do, in fact, with where you draft. And it's not really who you take. It's who can you develop. Who comes into the building? Can you figure out how to put them in a scheme or to work your scheme around them? Can you find Malcolm Butler, who's working at Popeyes a year ago? Now he's the star corner, number 1 cornerback on Bill Belichick's AFC title team. That's what they do. They let Patrick Chung go. He stinks. He goes to Philadelphia. They cut him. They bring him back. He becomes a Pro Bowler. It's developing players and building the scheme around the players, and having an eye for who fits in your scheme, rather than, here's a top 5 pick, that's how you turn the franchise around. That's not really how it works.
I completely agree. Couldn't agree anymore. Is there any more thoughts you want on the Chiefs and the Patriots before we move on to the second game of Saturday?
No, not right now.
Okay, Ollie. The Packers and the Cardinals. Ooh. I don't know where you want to start with this one.
I don't know where to begin. Let's bow down to Larry Fitz, continue to blow Bruce Arians, as every media outlet has to do, and I do like him. It was such a wild game, and it truly is an all-time great. It isn't hyperbole when people talk about it being great. It was just so many twists and turns. Like I said, I don't know where to start. It's such a difficult game to evaluate. The Cardinals should have won it. Somehow the Packers get another Hail Mary to stay in this game. Then you've got the second guessing of play calling decisions for both sides of the team. You have a coin that doesn't flip. I didn't know that was possible, that you could throw a coin in the air and it didn't flip.
I don't think it's the coin. I think it's the person who tried to flip it.
And then credit to him. And he says, in this game, we had a statement where a referee took it upon himself to diffuse a situation and reflip the coin. And then even that he screwed up because he didn't allow Aaron Rodgers to recall it. It's just never been anything like it.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, from my perspective, if I really take a step back and look at it not emotionally, and actually I've been able to do that because in a way I've checked out of the Packers, not as a fan, of course, diehard fan, but I checked out in terms of expectations,
yes,
particularly when we came into this game against the Cardinals. But if I actually take a step back and I think, it's a painful way to lose again like it was last year. No, nothing compares to the last year. Nothing ever will compare to the loss against the Seahawks. But it took 2 incredible passes from Aaron Rodgers to even get us to overtime. And there were moments in that game as well where the Cardinals should have, to be quite honest, put us away to a certain extent. And moments where, the Packers got a bit lucky. And so it doesn't hurt that much as a loss. You look at the manner of it in a way and you think, yeah, that's bad. But actually losing and thinking about what happened, you know what? You just got to accept it, Ollie.
Yeah, and I think that Packers fans would admit, if these teams played 10 times, they would maybe win one of them. I think the Cardinals are a better team. And it's not luck. Again, this Packers coaching staff who gets just hammered by their own fan base, hammered by the rest of the league, is a smart group. To turn around from what was a few weeks ago an embarrassment in Arizona to what they did this week was very impressive from everyone involved. When they get Sam Shields back, it's a different team seemingly, even though they've been good defensively, and they figure out an offensive game plan which struggled to move the ball initially. They go and make second half adjustments and they find ways to move the ball. I thought it was a good job, and Mike McCarthy's just been killed by a lot of people, particularly the analytical community, for not going for 2 at the end. And I just hate the hindsight game. If he goes for 2 there, they miss it. People are killing him saying, what about you could have given Aaron Rodgers a chance to drive if he gets the coin flip? And also, can we have the discussion about the overtime stuff? Can we do that?
Yeah, let's do that, and then I'll journey back to the plays before overtime. But go on, what about overtime?
Enough with they need to employ college rules. Enough with Aaron Rodgers didn't get a chance at the ball. Of course he did. His defense had to come up and make plays like they did in the first half. You can't legislate just bad play and start giving everyone an opportunity. There's 2 sides of the ball. They tweaked the rules. It was silly to have a field goal decide the thing. They tweaked the rules to say, get yourself a defensive stop. Should that happen on a coin flip? I don't know. How do you want to do it? Who had the most yards in the game? What other way can we do this? You get a stop defensively. You give the ball to your franchise quarterback. That's what they did all day to stay in the game. It was an incredible display from the Packers defense. They couldn't get a stop when it mattered in overtime. They blew an assignment on Larry Fitzgerald, which was their mistake, and it cost them a game.
Yeah, and this Packers defense is good, and it's the whole point. The view that you kind of everybody needs a chance on offense really is just subscribed to the kind of offense is the only thing that matters. You play 2 ways. There's 2 parts of a game of football. So if you're on defense, and some people in the past have actually asked to be on defense when going into an overtime situation because they feel it's their better side of the ball, then you go and do that. It's a 2-way thing, Ollie.
It's an illogical argument, and the college overtimes is fun when you hear about those ones every couple of years when there's a shootout or there's a crazy play. When you actually get to the 7th overtime, it's really not fun. It isn't. I just don't. Again, it's the people and it's that core part of certain bits of the media. I don't always like to hammer them, I guess, but it's all about the quarterback. It's all they care about, and they're just devastated they didn't get to see Aaron Rodgers. Well, maybe someone should have got a stop for Green Bay. That's the way this thing works.
Exactly. And now myself, I mean, if the Packers weren't going to win the Super Bowl, if I'm looking around anywhere, it's the Cardinals that I want to win it. So going out to the Cardinals doesn't hurt as much as going out to the Seahawks would, for example. Mm-hmm. And we'll obviously get onto them in a minute. Anyway, sorry, that's evil. Sorry, Seahawks fans. I don't like to take, schadenfreude, pleasure in other people's sadness. Again, defense of the Packers, I thought was excellent. I think the secondary is young. It's got real potential. I think that could be a strength of the Packers moving forward. I just want to go, Ollie, and I have to indulge myself just a second.
Please do.
Those 2 throws which was the drive, basically, yes, to get the Packers level at the end of the 4th quarter, going to overtime, were ridiculous.
Yes.
And the second one, I genuinely have said, I've said so many times on this show to you and in the previous versions of this program that we've done and all the way back over several years now, I've always said that Aaron Rodgers can make throws that no one else can. And I know that we see great things from Brady and Manning and Russell Wilson and Cam Newton. There is no person in this NFL now, and I don't care what anybody says, you can challenge me on this, I won't concede the point. I truly believe this, that could have made that throw.
No.
Rolling out, running to his left, trying to set in some way as he's about to get hit, toss the ball.
Back foot.
Back foot, 60 yards downfield. I mean, and I know there's a bit of luck involved in this guy getting underneath it. Well done to Jeff Janis.
Not really. I'm not going to lie. Not really. There was no luck involved in that play. I hate that as a theory.
No. Not in the throw. I feel
all of it.
Like, no, if you listen to what Rodgers says, he says, I tossed it up there. I didn't know who was there.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's down to Janis getting himself underneath it. So it's not luck. It's obviously good play from Janis. But nobody could have thrown that ball.
No one could have thrown the one in Detroit either. That in itself is a skill to just not just be able to throw it that far, but to throw it under pressure. They did exactly. I tweeted out just before that happened. First of all, there was a sense that it was going to happen when you're watching it live. You could just tell this thing wasn't over. I begged the football gods to continue the game. They did do, and I thank them for that. Just an incredible game. And like you said, no one could make that throw. It's the getting hit and where he releases it that was amazing to me, and no one probably ever could make that throw. Chris Collinsworth, who's seen more football than I and knows more than I would ever dream to know, said that's the best throw he's ever seen, and no one could make that throw. So I'm going to take his word to the bank because he's seen more than me. And I agree with you on that point. Just an incredible, incredible play. And I hope we don't forget the 4th and 20 play, which was almost just as remarkable. It doesn't have the shock value because of the scoring play, and you don't want to be that guy who prefers like the second thing because it becomes like the mainstream to like the great throw. But that was an unbelievable play, and I just hope that we never forget that one either.
We will never forget this game, and I think that after a bumpy season for the Packers, and we will look at all the teams in the off-season, we will talk about them ad nauseum, we'll go through the things that they could have done better, the good things, the bad things moving forward. But for the Packers, it's been an up-and-down season, and it's been a strange one. But I think when push comes to shove, this is a good team with a good coaching staff that just needs a little bit more talent and a little bit more performance, really, from its general manager.
They do. I mean, they lack talent. That's what it is. And maybe it would be a coaching change if they did change things. Would it unlock something else in the team? Possibly. But they were good enough on defense to win a championship this year, and they weren't good enough on offense. They have the quarterback clearly. They lost depth. The depth chart wasn't deep enough. Clearly, they didn't have that talent we expect them to have to step up when it's a team that drafts all the time and drafts and develops. So that was disappointing. I just don't think it's on the staff. I'm a big supporter of that Green Bay staff. And I think that they go into next year, because they have that quarterback and because the defense played well, they're going to be in the top 4 favorites probably to win the whole thing.
There you go. Sorry we haven't talked much about the Cardinals, but I think we're going to be talking about them a lot, obviously, in the later show this week. So Cards fans, well done. And I think you're the good guys as well, Cards fans, if you're listening out there. I think you're the guys that, if you look at the Final Four, I think if you took a poll across the demographic of teams that weren't in there and their fans, I think the fans of the teams that weren't actually left in the tournament, I think a lot of people would actually want the Cardinals to win it, Ollie. Yeah,
everyone loves Larry Fitzgerald, and they should do, and you want to see him go out with a ring if he can. Everyone loves Bruce Arians. The Carson Palmer story is fun as well. There's a guy who tried his best to give that game away. He couldn't help but try and give that game away, and still couldn't do it. Everyone loves Tyrann Mathieu, though he's not playing, so all these people universally liked and respected. I think you're right with that point.
Yeah, but then they can stop it there and Green Bay can win it next year. Okay, Let's move on to the third game, Ollie. And this was fascinating because the score at the end kind of like, oh, okay. But if you'd actually looked at the score at halftime, and I went in the bath and came out the bath at halftime and put the telly on and went, what the hell's going on? After several people had messaged me. Well, I just didn't get it. And then I watched the second half. And to me, it seemed like maybe how you felt when you were watching Aaron Rodgers with the ball, with a minute left or whatever it was. It was like, this is going to happen when Russell Wilson took over in that third quarter and the points started to come on and the Carolina Panthers didn't have a response. In the end, I was actually, if I was the Panthers, I would have been squeaky bum time, very relieved that I got through that game.
I guess so. I mean, it's kind of in both these teams' MO. The Seahawks just do not die. No one can really put them away. And then you have the Panthers who, with this year, people have been throwing this around. I'm going to make this point and kind of debunk my own point, that they've almost thrown games away this season. The Giants is the one that immediately springs to mind. There was another game where they're up by a huge margin. I think it was the Seahawks, where they're up by a great margin and they let teams come back to them. No one tacks on to that point that they still got over the line. Like, it doesn't matter that a team got close. They still win the games. I didn't feel like the Panthers were in any way, not intimidated is the wrong word, but I don't think that they were getting nervous. Now, maybe it was forced from Cam Newton, but he was all smiles on the sideline. He was going into the defensive huddle.
Hang on. There was a moment, Ollie.
One moment, yeah. He couldn't get the plays in his headset, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it was so good, though, to watch, because he comes over, puts his helmet down, and unfortunately, you can still hear the mic from him, and he goes, I can't keep my cool. And
they kill the audio. Yeah, he said he couldn't get the plays in his headset, so I get that. And they ran the clock down, and I never felt watching it. I thought the Seahawks would come back some part, and I thought that this would be maybe closer because, like I said, it's kind of in both teams that this would happen. But I never felt when they were coming back that this was the sort of game where they would flip it and win the game.
What does this tell you though about? I think we're going to see judgment on Cam Newton a little bit later, and I'm really interested to see how they deal with the Cardinals. But what about Russell Wilson? I mean, this is a big spot, big game against a heavily favoured opponent at home, and yeah, he brought his team back, but what happened in that first half? And I mean, I'm really looking for a narrative of number 3.
Yeah, I can't really lay any blame at the door of Russell Wilson. I thought that his offensive line was just manhandled and bullied up front. K1 Short was out of his mind. Justin Britt, the right guard, was just destroyed by Short and by multiple others. He was under fire for, 20 of his 46 dropbacks? He is the ultimate backyard player, as many people discuss. He can move around and make plays that others can't make. It's just at times unsustainable. And when you're playing a defense that good, it was just tough in the first half, and then the second half, of course, happened. I can't really find a narrative. The guy's been in the Super Bowl each of the last 2 years. They had another decent year this year. They're going to be contenders for some time. They're clearly going to be a Final Four team. They have been for so long now that it's not a Patriots type thing. I class it as like a Denver under Manning, where that's the first obstacle to get to the next one. They're going to be a team that everyone has to get past at some point if they want to try and win this thing in the NFC.
What about Kawan Short as well?
Just a monster, as I mentioned. He had a sack, 2 hits, 4 hurries, dominated the point of attack. It's not just him, it's the fact that he gets to play alongside Star Lotulelei. You've got Charles Johnson, obviously Kuechly Davis, Shaq Thompson. Then you've got the secondary that people know about with Josh Norman. But he's just a complete monster up front. And to have that kind of guy who can both stuff the run and then rush the passer, he's more explosive than the likes of a Vince Wilfork. But it's the same thing where they have the dual functionality, so he doesn't have to come off the field and he plays with a constant motor. It's a special breed of athlete to get that guy, and to have not 2 of them, because Star Lotulelei isn't that as good as he is, but you have a guy who is every team in this league will try and get as a starter in Lotulelei. It's amazing to have the pair of them.
Okay, and finally, Ollie, how about the Panthers? Are they going to be confident going into the next game against the Cardinals? Are they going to be maybe a little bit on edge? How about Cam Newton? Because, good first half, and then second half, it didn't look as cool as he did in the first.
I think it was almost like a game management type role. Obviously not a game manager. He's the ultimate third down threat in the league, but he handed the ball off a bunch, and he didn't run the ball much in this game, and he couldn't really get much going because the Seahawks themselves know all about the spread attack and the zone options and the read options. But just the threat of him running clearly opens up huge rushing lanes for the likes of Jonathan Stewart, who's really the star of this game for Carolina. Cam just kind of did his thing. He had that incredible throw to Greg Nelson, perfect ball location, the type of throw he couldn't have made early in his career and has made that type of throw this year. That's what he can do. You think you've got him contained. He's maybe not having his best day. He's just being so-so. And he comes out and makes that throw, or he makes a big run, or he makes a play with his legs to throw. That's what he can do. And I think if anyone is not going to be nervous at anything in life, it's Cam. I mean, he's been seen, done it all, won Heisman's, won national titles, won divisional games, now to his first championship game in the NFL. I think he'll be fine. Now, whether they win or not, that Cardinals team is really good on both sides of the ball, but I don't think it's going to be anything to do with nerves.
It's going to be the biggest game of his life, though, and everybody suddenly finds a point where they're a little bit scared.
Not this guy. This guy wins national title Florida, national title junior college, comes back to Auburn. Auburn is a nobody. They've been crushed by Alabama for almost 100 years, steps into the SEC, year 1, national title. This guy does not care in the slightest. Heisman, first overall pick, breaks all the rookie records. 0 nerves to Cam Newton. He doesn't care.
Yeah, he's a pretty good player.
Yeah, 15-1 this year, by the way. They went into that game, they're a 1-point favorite at home. You get 3 points if you play at home, is the usual Vegas line. So they're almost a 2-point underdog at home by Vegas. They're a 15-1 team. I cannot believe that they aren't being lauded as how great they are and how great he is. Talk about people who have never done stuff before with what Rodgers can do. No quarterback has ever looked like him. Obviously, I'm not talking about the black, being a black quarterback. I'm talking about no one has been that. I mean, that does come into it because of what happens with those players, unfortunately. And Mark Richt at Georgia wanted him to play tight end when he's recruiting him, which is just hilarious to think of. But no one has been that size, that weight, that speed, and made those type of throws with accuracy that he makes. It's like if you drew up the perfect quarterback in a lab. That's what it looked like, Cam Newton.
Interesting. There you go. Let's move on to the final game, Ollie, which completes our quartet. The Broncos at the Steelers. And it came out with the Broncos win in the end. I was concerned when we did the preview show, the late show last week, that without Antonio Brown and with Ben Roethlisberger the way he was, it just wasn't quite going to be enough, and the Broncos would eke this one out. And they did in the end, even with Manning having his struggles, Ollie.
Having his struggles, but you would never know by watching the broadcast.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible the way they cover up for him. Just I thought it was an interesting game, particularly from an X's and O standpoint, because these teams weren't able to do what they would traditionally like to do, because it kind of counteracts each other, and because the Steelers lost their personnel. So traditionally, the Broncos, as many people know, they blitz not a great deal, they press a lot, it's a lot of man coverage. The Steelers love that stuff, they get the switch stuff going, the pick plays that people know about, but they lose their prime receiver, so they weren't able to run a great deal of that, and the Broncos come out in a predominant zone defense or playing off-man coverage, and Ben was pretty happy. He picked them apart for most of the first half, was able to make some big chunk plays. Martavis Bryant was having a day. The second half comes around. The Broncos, I think, more than anyone this year, including Belichick and New England, have been an incredible second half team of making adjustments with Phillips and Kubiak, almost winning games at halftime with their adjustments. And Phillips comes out and says, let's not go down by doing something different. Let's go down by just doing what we do. and seeing if they can beat it. And the Steelers struggle to move the ball in the second half. They have the costly fumble, and the Broncos win the game by being just efficient on offense.
So why were the Steelers struggling to get the ball moving in the second half?
Well, first of all, Von Miller and Derek Wolfe just went out of their minds. The two edge rushers were incredible, and I think that adjustment to saying, let's play press man, and let's see if the Steelers can get some of their combinations going. And when their combinations, it's about Ben making time for himself, hanging in the pocket, having some slow developed stuff rather than the quick hit stuff. And when that pressure begins to come, you lose that time, obviously. And I think that was part of the struggle for him, plus moving the ball on the ground.
Okay. Is it really the fumble that was the killer?
Certainly a huge part of it. Not as bad as the Jeremy Hill one, because they weren't leading the game, but it was bad. I mean, there's no other way to put it. That cost them any shot winning the game.
Okay. I'm interested, Ollie, in the Steelers because I feel like we're at a turn here. I think Roethlisberger's getting more and more beaten up, and I don't know how many more real peak years are going to get out of him.
That's fair. I don't know whether it's a peak thing or just that style of play. If they just moved to what something like the Patriots are doing or what the Broncos did when Manning first got there, where Manning was as beat up as you can get. The guy had 4 neck surgeries and couldn't really throw the ball and yet threw for more yards than anyone in the history of the game in one season. I think it's just changing the approach to the offense. I don't think you can have him, as fun as they are with that big splash yardage, and as incredible as it is, there's going to have to be points in the season, as you mentioned, he just gets so beat up where you go to a quicker package, get the ball out of his hands quickly, let him preserve himself, because if you allow him the opportunity to hang back there, he's going to hang back there and take more shots. So I think maybe tweaking some stuff, but it's a smarter group than I, so I'm not going to question what they do.
Was there anything else you want to touch on in this game, Ollie? Because I kind of feel like it wasn't as interesting as the other three. Probably
not as interesting. Again, from the coaching standpoint, that was kind of fun with the way they approached and then some of the tweaks that happen. It's not a building towards thing, as I mentioned at the start of the show, but this Steelers team, when they come back next year fully healthy, it's as deadly as anyone there is. If they do have Lev Bell, they don't even need Lev Bell. When they had D'Angelo Williams, they were deadly. If they have Brown, they have D'Angelo Williams. There's no reason why they couldn't have knocked off this team and gone on to the Super Bowl this year. So when they get those pieces back next year, if they can stay healthy, as with everyone, the team will be primed to contend for a title again.
Okay. Speaking of that, Ollie, It's interesting. Of the teams that are gone now, these 4 teams that went out this week, who do you think's primed to make a title game next year?
Probably between the Steelers and Packers, I would say, but I think the AFC is more open than the NFC. Now, we have this conversation about conferences all the time, and it seems to swing back. Really, the obstacle in the AFC is the Patriots, and you do have to ask the question every year, how long can it go for? Seemingly forever, but that's the only team that you would be in any way intimidated by coming into the season that isn't called the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I don't know what's going to happen with Manning. Will he ever play again? Will he come back to Denver? Will he go somewhere else? The Chiefs are probably the next team up. The AFC South can't figure out who's going to be good. Will the Colts become good again? So I think that the Steelers have the easiest path, where they are probably, when healthy, the second best team in that conference already walking into next season. Whereas the Packers, as good as they can be, in their ceiling is to win a Super Bowl like the Steelers. You have Carolina, Arizona, Seattle, a bunch of teams to negotiate.
Exactly. That makes it very difficult if you're coming out of the NFC. Ollie, divisional round is over. Conference championship games are coming up.
Exciting
times. Okay. Right. Whew. Let's mop the brow, wipe the sweat off, and let's get to the news. Ollie, do it. Okay, so the news, well, it's mainly around head coaching changes, but before we get to those, let's touch on Marshawn Lynch, because with Seattle going out of the playoffs, Ollie, surely the cap hit is too much, and this is the end of Marshawn in Seattle, and also, therefore, where could he end up?
It's a great point. I think that the cap hit, you're correct, is too much, but only in the context of that team. It's like, Adrian Peterson has a huge cap hit, but you need him in Minnesota. When you have Russell Wilson who displays he doesn't really need a elite running back or someone being paid like an elite running back to have success as he did this season, and you have Thomas Rawls who's going to get paid $800,000 next year, not 12, 14 million like Marshawn Lynch, and had equal production to Marshawn. Those kind of things match up and make sense. And you look at running backs, it's an interesting question because he's been so beat up now. He's at that kind of 30-year mark for running backs where you don't want to pay him. Someone's probably going to pay him. Will it be Dallas? Who's it going to be? Dallas will be the team I think people most leap to immediately. I don't know. For the type of money he would command, it's going to be tough. I think he could end up somewhere where it's a non-competitive team with a nice paycheck, like Tennessee or someone like that.
Do you think he's really worth the money?
If he's at his best, he's as dangerous as there is in the league right now. It's not a great crop of running backs in this generation. Adrian Peterson's getting old, Marshawn Lynch is there, Todd Gurley has flashed, but he's dealt with health issues as well. So if you can get him for a good price and you're a contender, and he says, I want to win Super Bowl rings, give me $6 million a year rather than 12, but it's going to be more expensive than having a rookie, then if I'm the Cowboys, I'd make that deal.
Go join a quarterback who played for the California Golden Bears as well, perhaps.
In play.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, moving on to the head coach moves. Okay, this is an interesting one because I remember this guy quite fondly as a backup to Brett Favre. Doug Pederson, I never seem to say, I've seen him in lots of documentaries as well, never really could take him seriously, but he's becoming the Eagles head coach. Ollie, why the hell is this happening?
Well, they seem to be, Jeffrey Lurie is going back to the good old Andy Reid days, apparently. He goes and hires Andy Reid. He fires Andy Reid to hire Chip Kelly, to hire Andy Reid's offensive coordinator and go back to that coaching tree. And it seems like Andy Reid and him had a good phone conversation. There was a bunch of input from that side of things, and they genuinely want to go back to that style of not just the offense, but that organization and that kind of program, more low-key, more traditional, more West Coast. So that's what they're going to do now. He's helped implement the spread stuff that we spoke about so much this season with Reid making his change from the West Coast to being more spread. So it'd be interesting to see what he does, and he became kind of a hot candidate over the last few weeks with the Chiefs' rise with that 11-win season. So always tough to evaluate immediately. Not a real hot take here, but I'm interested to see what he does.
How do you think this will impact the quarterbacks in Philadelphia? Because that's always a question. Do you think this would suit a Sam Bradford more, the Doug Pederson style of play?
I think Bradford would work more in a rhythm-based offense than a read offense, which is kind of what Chip's spread system was. But all systems, all they really want is accuracy. You can't game plan stuff if you don't understand where the ball's going to go. If you can't process the information and get it there on time and accurately, it doesn't really matter what the system is. And Bradford, to me, just isn't accurate enough to be one of those top-tier guys, regardless of system. It's like Cutler. Even when you see a change in the coordinator and he gets a little bit better, it's not a huge sea change because you can't change the accuracy in decision making. And so that's what they need. And that's not Bradford. I think they're going to try and tag him and trade him, if not just walk away from the table completely. And I wouldn't be stunned to see Bradford walk down to San Francisco with Chip.
No, not at all. Moving on to the Tennessee Titans. They've made Mike Mularkey the permanent head coach. Why?
Well, you heard it first, Tom. As I was telling people for weeks and weeks, when the Chip Kelly news got announced that he was fired, the Titans were always going to go to Mike Mularkey. As we mentioned here, they are in complete... Is discourse the word?
Just disarray.
Disarray is a better word. They don't know who's owning the team. They don't know which child is in charge. They don't know who the general counsel is. They don't know whether to sell the team or not. I mean, they think they're trying to sell the team, which is why they just gave the interim coach the head coaching job. And they didn't know how to sign a contract because they didn't have a general counsel there. So they just removed the interim tag, make him head coach, and waste away at least 2 years of Marcus Mariota's career, which is unfortunate.
Okay, there you go. Anything else you want to say about Mr. Mularkey?
No, it's not Mike Mularkey's fault. Go and get a head coaching job. There's only 32 of them. If they offer it to you, take him. It's just the league has been so fixated on getting to LA that they have neglected ownership situations in Tennessee, the issues in Cleveland. They neglected all that stuff because they've been so focused on LA, and they've got to try and figure this Titans thing out as quick as possible because you've got a guy there, Mariota, who is so marketable and so likable that if he gets to ride that franchise, now you've got a huge swift of pro football fans in what is a college town in Nashville if you can get that situation right. So it's in the league's best interest to try and get that play to play well and to get that ownership situation, the general manager, and all that kind of stuff figured out.
All our English listeners will also see the irony in the Titans having a head coach called Mularkey.
Yes.
But there you go. Okay, let's look at Dirk Cutter now.
Oh, the night of the long knives.
I love Dirks, by the way.
Yes.
Just like Dirk Kuyt, or whatever his name was, he played for Liverpool. I love a Dirk. He's going to be the Bucks man now. What? It's another one that I just didn't see coming.
Well, this one was a true, seemingly stab in the back of I'm going to go and accept another job somewhere unless I'm allowed to keep working with Jameis Winston. And so they say, okay, we'll bullet Lovie Smith and make you head coach. And I love Dirk Cutter. I mean, we spoke about the Bucks disproportionately to the rest of the league. I think all the long-time listeners will know that because I noticed early in the season when no one was really mentioning this, that their change to say our offensive line is so terrible, we are going to play with essentially 6 to 7 offensive linemen, make one of them an eligible player, and so that the defense has to think about them, and but keep him in to block on almost every single play, which was a very intelligent move from Cutter. And it's that kind of thing. They just want to keep all these team hires this year: Adam Gase, Dirk Cutter, Malarkey, Pedersen. It's about making the quarterback room as good as possible. And if Jameis has that good a rookie year, we see it when you have the turnover of new OC every year, new head coach every couple of years. They're trying to keep that relationship together, and so they just promote Cutter.
Okay. Ollie, let's move on from the news and finish off with some listener questions.
That's it.
Okay, you can tweet us at ThomasMoore27, at Ollie Connolly, 2 N's, 2 L's, and you can also, there you go, you can also, try to make it easy for them, it's not easy to spell that name,
I know.
Try to use the hashtag MCFS, because that's how we find your questions, so if you do that, that's what we generally search by. So, first of all, Paul Nern at PNern, he says, and he's referencing Noodle Armed, and there's a cartoon accompanied with it, Peyton Manning, says, does this man have any chance of beating Tom Brady?
I believe not. But we'll talk about that more in the preview.
I would also believe not. Spoiler alert. Also, I have a lovely question from Daniel Negus at DannyBoy1704. He says, probably more of a question for Tom. If you had to choose between not listening to a David Bowie song for the rest of your life or not watching a Leslie Nielsen fan for the rest of your life, which would you choose? It's a tough one. He went Leslie Nielsen.
That's fair. I think you could get away with Bowie is great. You've had enough of it. He's gone. You go. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I would definitely say Leslie Nielsen. I mean, Leslie Nielsen, it just fills me with so much joy. But there you go. Ollie, in fact, this week, everyone was so focused on the games, and I got a lot of comments about that from Callum Woods and from Big T and, you know, all the other gang, from Mandy, from Eric Sandgren, from Lambo Guy. Lots of comments about the games when they were happening, and of course Brett Loveday. The less he says, the better. But yeah, so apart from that, that's all the questions I got this week.
Yeah, I got a bunch, but it's tough to find. I was on fire on Twitter this week, Tom. I'm not, I'm arrogant enough to say I was having a monstrous night, particularly on Saturday night with that game. All kinds of questions and comments. So do keep them coming in. We certainly read them, and please send in the questions for the late show, the back end of the week show.
The late show.
The late show. Us, Corden, Fallon, whoever does it now.
Yeah, whatever's going down. Please, yeah, keep hitting us up at ThomasMoore27, at Ollie Connolly, and use the hashtag MCFS. Okay, Ollie, that's us done then.
That's us done. I gotta go do website stuff.
You're gonna do website stuff?
Yeah, let's go do it.
Okay, alright, I'm gonna go and sow some wild oats. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. But for now, it's goodbye from Ollie Connolly.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Bye, everyone.